He slammed her against the wall. No warning, no hesitation, just a badge and the fury that came with it. But what if the woman he grabbed wasn't just a bystander? What if she was here to dismantle the very system he believed he ruled? He didn't know her, not yet, but by the time he learned the truth, the damage was done, and justice was already watching. If that first moment made your heart pound or your fists clench, don't keep it to yourself. Tap like, share this story with someone who still believes in accountability, and subscribe to Silentshift Stories, where the unheard finally get a voice. Now follow me back to the courthouse hallway where silence shattered and power flipped. Upside down. They say justice is blind, but sometimes it's just looking the other way. That morning, the courthouse hallway buzzed with tension. People in second-hand suits whispered nervous prayers. The sound of heels clicking on the tile echoed like a countdown. The air was thick with something unspoken, something ready to snap. And then it did. Officer Grant Ellison stormed down the corridor like a man in command. Broad shoulders, tight jaw, eyes scanning like searchlights for defiance. He didn't walk. He patrolled, as if the courthouse were his territory, not a hall of law. To him, anyone not in uniform was suspect, and if your skin wasn't white, even more so. Near the benches, a black woman stood silently. She wasn't filming, wasn't talking. She wasn't doing anything, just watching the courtroom doors, maybe waiting for someone inside. She wore a charcoal gray blouse, plain slacks, nothing flashy, late 30s or early 40s. Calm, still, quiet. Grant barely looked at her before barking, "ID." She didn't flinch, didn't move, just stared at him, cool, steady, the kind of stillness that doesn't come from fear, but calculation. She was measuring him. He didn't wait. With one hand, he yanked her bag off her shoulder. With the other, he twisted her wrist and shoved her toward the wall. The cuffs clinked like gunshots in a room that was supposed to hold dignity. Her shoulder hit first, then her cheek, hard enough to draw a gasp from the crowd. But no one stepped in. Phones emerged. Red dots blinked, fingers hit record, but feet stayed planted, eyes darted away. The crowd did what crowds do when power abuses its badge. They watched, quietly, and she didn't scream, didn't protest. She just turned her head, locked eyes with him, not with fear, but with clarity, with something ancient and powerful, like she'd seen this scene 100 times before. Grant stood over her, breath heavy, his grip tight around the cuffs. His face wore control, but his body betrayed him. A twitch in his hands, a shift in his stance. Doubt. Except her. She knew. And what she did next changed everything. There's a coldness in courthouses, not from the air conditioning or marble floors, but from the silence, from posture, from the kind of power that doesn't shout. It dismisses. The benches are wooden, stiff-backed, unforgiving. They creak when you shift, but no one dares move too much. The walls are beige and emotionless, like they were designed to mute everything human. The message is clear: fall in line. The bailiffs nod and open doors. The clerks type endlessly, eyes forward, as if looking up might implicate them in something they'd rather not see. And the officers, they walk like they're wearing more than gear. They walk like they're wearing permission. Grant Ellison moved through that place like he was more than part of the system, like he was the system. Years in that hallway taught him the rhythms, the rules, and how to bend them. He saw himself not just as a peacekeeper, but as the judge of who belonged, who didn't, who looked like trouble, and who didn't deserve to be asked before being handled. He didn't wait for a judge's cue, he didn't consult the clerks, and he never ever asked the people he grabbed. He moved loud, fast, sharp, like noise itself proved him right, and no one had stopped him, not once, because they thought. He brought order, but order isn't justice. And everyone who's ever sat on those hard benches knows the difference. After slamming her into the wall, Grant went right back to his post like it never happened. No report, no conversation with his sergeant, just arms crossed, a dare in his eyes. Try me. The woman, still silent, picked up her bag, dusted off her sleeve and sat down again. Calm, poised. She didn't touch the bruise forming on her cheek. She didn't speak, she didn't cry, she just waited. Her silence wasn't fear, it was restraint. It was power in stillness. And in that moment, it spoke louder than any badge ever could. People watched her, some in shame, some with curiosity. Others checked their phones, watching the clip they'd just captured. No one deleted it, but no one offered help either. No one said, "Are you okay?" Because in that place, this wasn't rare, it was routine, but something about this time felt different. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, unblinking. Maybe it was the dignity she carried, even with blood on her cheek. Or maybe people could sense it. The gears in the machine had caught on something real, something immovable. She looked like a woman who hadn't just come to wait. She came for a reason. And she wasn't finished, not yet. The hallway fell silent, flipped it open, held it out for all to see. A gold shield, deep police blue. Her name etched in raised silver, Chief Nadine Monroe, District 12 Police Department. At first, no one reacted. Then a young officer gasped down the hall, his mouth dropping like a broken hinge. A court clerk fumbled and dropped a pen. It hit the floor with a click that felt too loud. Inside the courtroom, the judge had been mid-sentence, but his voice caught. He paused, leaned back slightly in his chair, and glanced toward the hallway. With narrowed eyes, someone whispered, "No, another. She's the new chief." But Nadine didn't need the noise. She looked directly at Grant, her voice even, measured, not loud but impossible to ignore. "I was sworn in yesterday," she said, "and I came here today to see how justice is applied in this building. Quietly, observationally, no announcements, no special treatment." Then she let the silence speak. It hung there, pressing in from all sides until even the ceiling seemed to lean closer. Grant didn't blink. His hand loosened on the radio, clipped to his chest. His jaw flexed, but no words came out, and for the first time, maybe in his whole career, he looked unsure, not just caught off guard, but exposed. And now, Nadine added, her voice soft as a breath, "I've seen exactly what I came to see." That was the blow, not a scream, not a scene, just truth wrapped in composure, delivered with eyes that had seen too much to be shaken. Grant opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing to say, no protocol for this, no line from the handbook that could pull him out of it. And the people, they just watched, phones still recording, eyes wide, breaths held, not because she raised her voice, but because she didn't have to. Later that morning, the sun wasn't even up yet. Nadine sat in her car, parked across the street from the courthouse, engine off, window half cracked, a warm coffee cup rested on the dashboard, untouched. The kind of morning where everything is quiet, but your mind won't stop moving. She leaned back against the seat, eyes fixed on the building in front of her. That old courthouse, same stone steps, same faded brick, same cold glass doors, but a different reason for being here. She hadn't parked here in years. Not since the day she was 17, holding her mother's hand, trying to understand why the security guards were shouting at them like they'd done something wrong. Her mother had. Now, years later, she sighed, running a finger along the rim of her coffee lid. It was strange, coming back with the title Chief pinned to her name. You'd think it would feel like a victory, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like weight. She reached over to the passenger seat and picked up a folder, thin, old, worn at the corners. Inside was a rejection letter, one she'd kept all these years. It was from the academy, the first time she applied. Back then, she was fresh out of college, determined, sharp, fit, She passed every written exam, aced every physical test. But during training, she filed a formal complaint. She had witnessed an instructor making racist comments toward another recruit. They called it insubordination. She called it the truth. And the next week, she was out. No explanation, no apology, just an envelope. She could have walked away from law enforcement then, and she almost did. But her mother had just been diagnosed with breast cancer, and in one of those long nights between appointments and prayers, Nadine found something in an old keepsake box, a letter, folded 4 times, ink fading at the edges. "Justice doesn't wear a badge," it said. "It walks in your spine. If you feel it there, don't let anyone break it." Her mother had written it years before. After that humiliating day at the courthouse, Nadine never showed the letter to anyone. Not even the review board when she reapplied, but she carried it, literally, in her wallet, right behind her ID. It wasn't a badge, it was a promise. Now, in the quiet of this early morning, she unfolded that letter again. Let the words settle over her one more time. She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes older, wiser, but still carrying that same fire. She wasn't that girl holding her mother's hand anymore. And she wasn't the cadet begging for fairness from a broken system. She was the one walking back into the building, not as a witness, not as a victim, but as the chief. And justice, it was still in her spine, steady, unshaken. She closed the folder, slid it under her seat, and finally took a sip of her coffee. The bitterness was familiar, but this time it tasted like purpose. She opened the door, stepped out onto the street, straightened her blazer. No sirens, no spotlight, no announcement, just a quiet decision. Today, she wouldn't be silent. Later, a quiet conference room, the door shut with a soft click, no echo, no metal slam, just finality. They were alone. A narrow conference room tucked behind the administrative offices. No cameras, no reporters, no lawyers, just beige walls, a wooden table, and the kind of quiet that feels like a storm waiting to start. Grant didn't move, so Nadine flipped the folder open herself. One page, then another, then another. Inside, printed screenshots, body cam stills, incident reports with highlighted inconsistencies, internal memos that somehow disappeared before becoming formal complaints, names, dates, patterns. "You think no one was watching?" she said. Her tone level, not angry, just steady. But someone always is. A bystander, a victim, a young officer who's not as loyal to your silence as you thought. Grant scoffed. A bitter sound. He reached for one of the papers, skimmed it with practiced arrogance. "This is garbage," he muttered. "You dragged me in here to what? Make a point? Humiliate me again? You already did that out there in front of the whole damn courthouse." He leaned forward, voice rising. "You think I didn't see the look in your eyes? This isn't about justice. This is personal." Nadine finally sat. She didn't flinch. She didn't fire back. She let his words settle, hang, fade. Then she spoke. Quiet. Almost too quiet. "You didn't just humiliate me, Officer Ellison. You humiliated the badge." Grant blinked. "Excuse me?" She leaned slightly closer. Not aggressively, but with purpose. That uniform doesn't give you the right to grab, to shove, to profile. It gives you the responsibility to protect, to serve with restraint, with integrity. You forgot that a long time ago. She paused, eyes fixed on his. And worse, you taught others to forget it too. Grant laughed. Short, hollow. You've been chief for what, 2 days? And suddenly you're the moral compass of the entire department? He pushed the file back toward her. This is a witch hunt. Old cases. Complaints from people who hate. Cops! You think any of this holds up? Nadine didn't answer immediately. She took a breath. Let the silence do its job. Then she reached into her jacket and pulled out a flash drive. She placed it on top of the file. That's from the locker room camera, she said softly. You thought it was off. It wasn't. That's you telling. A rookie to handle the loud ones early. That's you laughing when a man with a stutter was cuffed before he could explain he was a witness, not a suspect. Grant's expression shifted, just a flicker. But it was there. You don't know what it's like. Hall remained quiet, humming only with the soft whir of HVAC and distant footsteps. No voices, no eyes lifting to meet his. Just the slow, heavy echo of his own shoes on the tile. For the first time in years, Grant Ellison didn't feel like an officer. He felt like a shadow slipping through a building that no longer remembered his shape. As he stepped outside, the late afternoon light washed over him, too bright, too indifferent. There were no reporters, no protesters, no banners with his name, scrawled in fury. Grant stood for a long moment, the wind teasing his collar before turning away. There would be no redemption arc here, no press conference, no reassignment. The silence had spoken louder than anything he could ever write or defend. And somewhere, in a small apartment not far from the station, Nain Monroe finally exhaled. Not victory, just breath, the kind you release after holding it in for 6 years too long. The reckoning had come, not with a riot, not with a bang, but with truth. Quiet, relentless, and seen. Suspensions, fines, write-ups, those punishments, live on paper. The other kind hides in every word that dies when you enter a room, in every turned back, in the hush that smothers conversation the moment your boots cross the threshold. You don't need a courtroom to feel that verdict. You only need a department full of people who've stopped believing you ever deserved the badge. Invisible punishments are slow and cumulative. They erode you grain by grain. The coffee no one. Pause. The shift roster that forgets your name. The quick sideways glance that says you're not trusted here. Every slight is a pebble in the pocket. Tiny, but together they drag you under. The meeting room was small. One long table, a pot of lukewarm coffee, 20 folding chairs that creaked whenever someone shifted. Yet this morning the air felt different. Nervous, yes, but threaded with something that hadn't lived here in years. Possibility. Nadine Monroe stood at the head of the table. No podium, no script, just a folder under her arm, and the poise of someone selecting every word like evidence. Veterans and rookies filled the chairs. Some crossed their arms, some took notes, a few simply watched, measuring her. She cleared her throat. Rebuilding starts with acknowledging who we've lost, not just those who walked out, but those we pushed out. A steady pause. Today, we begin with someone we never should have let go. The door opened. Leticia Torres entered, heads lifted, jaws stilled. 6 years earlier, she'd been one of the few women on the tactical team, praised for a hostage negotiation that made national news, then demoted under fuzzy critiques of command presence. Everyone had understood the subtext. She didn't lead like a man, and some men weren't ready to be led by her. Leticia's calm power drew attention without demanding it. Nadine gestured. No one met his eyes. A staffer slipped past with folders. An IT tech stared at her screen like it held the universe. Through the glass he saw his desk. Computer dark, drawers emptied, uniform jacket folded neatly in a box with his name on the lid. The door opened. Nadine again, calm and professional. Grant stepped inside, eyes flicking to bare shelves. Mug gone, team photo gone. "What is this?" he asked, already knowing. Nadine sat, opened a file, clicked a pen. Paper whispered beneath ink. She crossed out a name, his. "Effective today," she said, soft but unyielding. "Your employment is terminated." Grant swallowed. Nadine closed the folder, laid the pen atop it, and met his gaze. No trial needed. The people already judged. She meant the cadets who stopped quoting him, the lieutenants who stopped inviting him, the clerk who no longer looked up. They'd spoken through distance. He lifted the box, badge, watch, an old notebook. "That's it," he murmured. "That's it," she echoed. No cuffs, no spectacle, just the end of a story he thought he controlled. "You can go," Nadine said gently. "There's nothing left here for you." The line cut deeper than any headline, soft, final, inevitable. He nodded, opened the door. Nobody looked up. The walls didn't hold their breath. He was gone. Fluorescence flickered overhead. Even the light seemed to reset its allegiance. Grant reached the exit and paused at a new flyer. Peer Support Group. Meets Thursdays. All voices welcome. 6 months earlier, he'd have sneered. Now This story isn't just about rank or power. It's about conscience and the quiet courage to stand for what's right. If it moved you, tap like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Silentshift Stories for more true tales that inspire change and remind us we're not alone. Your support keeps these voices alive.